Joy was in her 30s and had spent years in a committed relationship with her fiancé, Ken. They had recently gotten engaged, and wedding preparations were already underway. To anyone looking in, their relationship seemed solid, built on mutual love and understanding. Ken was everything Joy had once dreamed of in a partner: gentle, supportive, and deeply devoted. Though his income was modest, he worked tirelessly, often taking on extra hours to provide a comfortable life for them. He truly believed that with love, dedication, and sacrifice, they could create something meaningful and lasting. But as much as Joy admired Ken's sincerity and effort, a quiet restlessness had begun to take root inside her. She couldn't ignore the difference between her life and the lives of the women in her social circle. Many of her friends were accustomed to wealth. They had luxurious wardrobes, dined at expensive restaurants, traveled abroad frequently, and lived in elegant apartments. Whether it was through their high-paying careers or wealthy partners, they had access to things Joy could only fantasize about. The contrast between their reality and her own modest life made her increasingly uneasy. Every time she saw their designer bags or scrolled through photos of their weekend getaways, she felt a growing void. A part of her began to question if love by itself was really enough. Despite her love for Ken, she found herself feeling ashamed of the simplicity of their lifestyle. The wedding planning only intensified these feelings, and Joy began to drift emotionally. Her internal conflict deepened, torn between the warmth of Ken's love and the craving for a lifestyle he couldn't provide. Then, unexpectedly, someone new entered her world. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media, Joy noticed a friend request from a man named Victor. She recognized him from local circles. He was a prominent businessman, known for his wealth and lavish taste. Though he was married, whispers of his generous ways with women were common knowledge. At first, Joy was cautious, but curiosity won out, and she accepted his request, telling herself it was harmless. What began as innocent conversation quickly escalated. Victor was charismatic and knew exactly how to appeal to her unspoken desires. He sent her designer gifts, took her to high-end restaurants, and showered her with compliments and attention. With him, Joy felt seen and indulged. It was thrilling, the attention, the luxury, the fantasy of a life far from her own. Slowly, almost without realizing it, she began seeing Victor more often. Her time with him became an escape from the ordinary. Ken, for all his goodness, couldn't compete with the glamour Victor brought into her life. Still, Joy was playing a dangerous game, and a part of her knew it. Her wedding was approaching fast, and she was living two lives, one filled with promises of love, and the other fueled by temptation and secrecy. She kept telling herself she had it all under control, that no one would ever find out. But that illusion shattered just days before the wedding. Joy found out she was pregnant. The news left her stunned. She should have felt joy. After all, she and Ken were preparing to build a family together. But instead, a wave of panic swept over her. She couldn't be sure who the father was. The timing blurred the lines between her two relationships, and the uncertainty was suffocating. She felt trapped beneath the weight of her choices. The guilt of standing beside Ken at the altar with such a massive secret crushed her. What if the baby wasn't his? What would happen if the truth ever came out? Fear took over. Fear of losing Ken. Fear of public shame. Fear of the life she'd destroy by confessing. Joy didn't know what to do. All she knew was that she had made a mistake that might cost her everything. She nodded along until the burden became too much to carry. Overwhelmed by fear and anxiety, she made a heartbreaking decision: to end the pregnancy. In her mind, it was the only way forward. She told herself it was necessary to preserve her future, protect her marriage, and hold on to Ken's trust. When it was done, she felt a strange mix of relief and aching grief. With trembling resolve, she vowed to start fresh, to remain faithful from that day forward. She still loved Ken deeply and believed they could create a happy life together. When their wedding day finally arrived, it was everything they had hoped for. The ceremony was beautiful, full of laughter, joy, and the loving presence of their friends and family. To everyone watching, they seemed like a couple destined for a long and happy marriage. Joy clung tightly to that illusion, doing her best to bury her past and focus on the life she was building with Ken. She was determined to be the partner he deserved. Months later, they began trying to start a family. Each month brought hope, then disappointment. At first, Joy thought it was just a matter of time. But as the months dragged on, concern grew. Doctor after doctor gave her vague answers, eventually leading to a quiet and grim reality. Her chances of conceiving were low. As the truth settled in, a dark suspicion began to gnaw at her. Had the abortion damaged her ability to become a mother? That thought refused to leave her. It haunted her waking hours and invaded her sleep. Guilt consumed her, whispering cruel reminders of what she had lost. She found herself thinking bitterly, "If I'd kept that baby, I would at least have had a child now, no matter whose it was." The future she'd once imagined with Ken now felt impossibly far away. Her sorrow deepened, bleeding into every part of her life. Ken noticed the change in her. He tried to comfort her, gently suggesting they could explore other options: adoption, fertility treatments. But Joy's grief turned inward, twisting into anger and regret. She began to shut down, emotionally distant and plagued by the choices she had buried. Then, one day, everything began to unravel. Ken overheard something, just a fragment of a conversation, but enough to raise suspicions. The name Victor, spoken too casually with too much familiarity. He couldn't ignore the feeling in his gut. When he asked her about it, pressing gently at first and then with growing urgency, Joy couldn't hold back any longer. The truth came pouring out: the affair, the pregnancy, the abortion. Ken was shattered. The woman he had given everything to, whom he had trusted with his heart, had deceived him in the most painful way. She tried to explain. She begged for his forgiveness, pleaded for another chance. But something had broken inside Ken. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't look at her the same way. The betrayal loomed too large. The future they'd planned, the children they'd dreamed of, all felt like a cruel illusion now. He stayed for a while, trying to find a way to move past it, but the hurt only grew heavier. Eventually, he made the agonizing decision to leave. Staying meant living with a pain he couldn't bear. And so their marriage came to an end. Not with a fight, but with a silence filled with sorrow and finality. Joy was left behind, alone with her memories and regrets. The ambitions that once seemed so important, status, comfort, admiration, now felt hollow. She had traded away the one thing that truly mattered: love. The one man who had ever truly cherished her was gone, and with him, the life they could have built. Now, in the quiet corners of her days, she often thought about the life that might have been. The laughter of children, the warmth of shared mornings, the small joys of growing old together. She had sacrificed all of it for a fleeting thrill, a false promise of something more. And in the end, she was left with nothing but silence and the echo of her own choices. There was no one else to blame. She had chased a dream that was never meant to be hers, and in doing so, lost the love, the trust, and the family she had once held in her hands.